So what we're going to go over is these new products and sort of how it changes things the way you build a system, okay? So we're going to talk about Spectrum 4.0. We're going to talk about our new product, which is SiteWatch and NightWatch, some new H.265 cameras, and a software update for our IP finder. So we released a line of motion detectors for analog and IP cameras, and they have some unique features and functionality we're going to talk about. One of the things is, of course, they integrate with our DW Spectrum directly, and applications for this stuff can be auto dealerships, agriculture, okay, someone's farming different things out there, they want to protect the crop, you can set up some of our motion detection and cameras out there in order to help protect it. Education, large parking areas, car rental lots, stuff like that, where you have a large number of cars that people might go in and vandalize or do whatever to. You can get some better alerts using our sensors. So first sensor I'm going to show you is a PIR, external movement motion detector, programmable out to 98 feet. It has a curtains in it, okay, which actually allows it to go from 10 to 70 degree angle, so it can match your view of a camera. If you have one of these tied to a camera, you can take a motion detector and tie it to the view of the camera, so anyone goes in view of that camera. You can use camera motion detection, but those can be prone to some false alarms and stuff like that just because of light changes, whereas a PIR motion detection won't be. And this one can do a 180 degree pan, tilt. Its view is actually hidden behind the front bubble, and it again directly integrates with Spectrum IP VMS. It's PoE powered, so you just go in, plug it in, set it up in Spectrum, and then they'll send signals to each other. And we're going to actually go in to show you how the interface works. So the next one is a PIR microwave detector. So they tend to be more accurate, okay? And so with the microwave interface, and again, it has the same functionality, okay? It has the 10 to 70 degree angle. You can also pan it 180 degrees and tilt it 90 degrees. Like I said, it has the side curtains that allow you to go in and actually compress the field of view so you can make it a very narrow window where it's doing motion detection, or a very wide window. And this is the web interface, and I'm just going to give you an example of it. So they have two canned events built into it, which is PIR detection, where it actually says if it detects motion, it's going to try to turn on an IP illuminator if one's available. You can add an action, which actually says Digital Watchdog Spectrum, and it sends the event directly into Spectrum. You could also it has low light detection built into it, so the PIR detector could be in an area that's not getting as much light as the actual illuminator, and so gets too dark here, the illuminator could actually put more light into that. IR white light illuminator can actually push more light into there. And so here's the section where you actually set up your events. Okay, so you can do PIR detection, low light detection, timer heartbeat. So this way, if PIR detection for some reason stops working, it's not sending that heartbeat out, it'll create an alert, send out an email, whatever, in order to tell you that there's a problem with it. Also, if it's being tampered with, someone's trying to take off the cover, and also temperature's getting out of range. You can do all those things from here, and you can set up multiple events, and they can go to multiple places. So they can talk directly again to the illuminator, talk into Spectrum, so Spectrum process it, and then it sends out events to different things, including here's the sensor settings, and again, this is the web browser view and the camera. And so you can set it up for pulse count, how often it's sending out its pulses. The LED detector. Now, the thing about the LED detector is if you're setting something up for 100 feet away, you're never going to see that little LED light on PIR. And we actually have a way to turn that off. It's actually very easy to turn that light off, so this way people won't know it's detecting them. But we also have a little remote you get, which is a walk tester, which actually talks back and forth with the detector and tells you that, hey, it's detecting me or it's not detecting me out here 75 feet out. It's not. Go in, make an adjustment, and change it. And then here is where you can make some of your adjustments. You can go in, set it for 26 feet, 49 feet, 5 feet, 98 foot away. It'll give you operating temperature. It has whether the tampering's been turned on or off and or triggered. It has digital outputs. Okay, so again, you can go in. You can also change the units, so you can change it to Fahrenheit to Celsius, change it to metric, whatever you do, depending on where you're installing that. Also, we have the network settings. The network settings normally are pretty boring, but you can go in, of course, put your fixed IP in, your HTTP, your HTTPS server port, but also, like I said, it has support for HTTPS, so you can have secured communication between the motion detector and the server. Okay, so any handshakes, any usernames and passwords, all that stuff will be hashed and be unable to be read. There's also a little setup for Control 4 integration. Probably have to go over in a later webinar, but it actually goes out and identifies the Control 4 system. The other detector we have in SiteWatch, so we have those two PIR detectors. We also have our laser detector. The laser detector is a little different because it's going out and firing a laser out. It runs on PoE, PoE plus. It sends out IP alarm, and it has relay outputs on it, and it's IP65 rated. But it's using eye-safe but invisible infrared radar pulses are emitted from the unit. If an object appears in the line of sight, it generates reflection, which the sensor detects. We can send the alert to the VMS and other places. So again, you can think of all the applications for this. Now, these are much bigger, longer fence lines on things, military, education, large parking areas where they're parking a large number of cars for a dealership, prisons, and you can set up 20 independent zones so you can have that fence line. And if something is, let's say in the first 50 feet, something's going over the fence, creates a detection, you can tie it back to a PTZ camera, create an alert in Spectrum, which creates a pop-up screen and any number of things, including just send an email saying, hey, so climbing over the fence at this point. But you can do 20 independent zones. It's a 905 nanometer wavelength. Again, the web interface built into it, very similar to the web interface I just showed you. And again, the 20 fully adaptable alarm zones. So here's sort of an example of, I wouldn't say extreme, but a good example of what you'd use it for. So we have a lot of boats in this marina. You can set up your zones. You can then, with those zones, have PTZ cameras tied to it. So if something breaks through one zone, PTZ camera can zoom in on a preset and do it. Same with that one over there. Maybe have some lights on the docks that come up to let someone know there's an alert happening. And obviously the lights are schedulable. But again, just a real powerful solution, and one of those ones for those, big installations where you're trying to figure out, how do I get sensors? The cost to do that, in labor and stuff like that. This, you only need one device on one side to do it. You don't need a reflector or anything else on the other side. So the other part of this is NightWatch, which is our illuminators. And we have IR and white light illuminators. They are high-powered LEDs designed for extreme environments, IP65 and IK9 rated. Setup of these, very similar to the SiteWatch product. You can enable an event. So this one happens to have low light detection, but you can add in other events to the system, including something directly from a SiteWatch, from Spectrum, from analytics in the camera, and have it processed through Spectrum. Now also you can do your LED settings. So you can have standard power on this thing very low. So most of the evening, white light and IR light, most of the evening it's on standard power very low, but you can actually set the boost mode higher and tell it to go to boost mode when event X happens. You can change the type of strobe. It has an energy saving mode. And as I said before, the boost mode, you can also change the type of strobe it has. So you can use this for regular lighting, or you can use this to, someone's walking onto a property and it'll just give them a real bright light for a short period of time and then go down to a little more manageable lighting. So while they adjust their eyes, you're going to get a good view of their face, clothes they're wearing, stuff like that. So this is a view of how it looks and what you get with it. Now we have a number of brackets, SiteWatch and the NightWatch, including a multi-unit bracket. So if you're using one of our panel cameras, these multi-imager cameras, you can go out and put 1, 2, 3 units on there and have IR light washing an area, or white light washing an area at night on those wide angle 180 degree, 360 degree camera. Again, you see pressure release valve, cable. The LED indicator tells you, of course, it has power, but if you're putting it on a switch that's not getting enough power, or you have trouble with the cabling, it's actually going to give you a little flash that tells you if it's underpowered, okay, which is very important. You don't want to run these things under. So again, you have your HTTPS settings for extra security. You can set up your own key for it. So this way, of course, its communication is encrypted. So a typical setup, you can have a server, you can have a IR detector camera illuminator, or you could use our CAS cameras. And those of you guys familiar with my other webinars, we make cameras that have the storage, that have Spectrum and everything built into it. So you could have one camera, and when I show you 4.0, all the features of 4.0 are actually just built into the camera, including the storage. So you don't need an extra server. So you could have a camera sending out alerts to an illuminator or multiple illuminators, or getting alerts from multiple detectors to a camera, because the camera acts as the server. No need for an extra black box. So I find that really good, because you can now marry it to a low-cost, low-server system. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our digital watchdog new cameras. So we introduced a few new models, and one of the things you'll notice is we're releasing and updating cameras so they have H.265 for codec, so you can save on hard drive space and storage. Also, though, these are 2.7 to 13.5 millimeter varifocal. You get a lot of requests that people want a little wider angle than 2.8. Probably come from some people who are on this call right now, and so we're pushing the envelope a little bit. 2.7 millimeter autofocus, and again, H.265 codec support, so you can save a little bit on quite a bit on hard drive space. We also have a dome version, same specs. Now this is IK10 impact resistant. It also has our clean view on it, which is a coating on the dome that doesn't mess up your picture, but if rain gets on it, dust, whatever, won't stick to the dome, so you don't have to go out there and see little spots and stuff like that on the dome. It does require you to handle them a little more gingerly when you're doing the initial install, but once they're in, less cleaning, less messing around with the camera, which is very important because we also have a 5-megapixel bullet. Now these have our Starlight Plus technology in it, so they're color and darkness far superior to anyone else's. So if you got to use the camera, color and darkness, or you're using them, with an Illuminator customer wants, you're going to be able to give them superior color at night or with the IRs on. Okay, this of course has built-in IRs, or you can use the IR Illuminator. Again, H.265, that little extra wide angle 2.7, and this will do up to 30 frames a second at 5 megapixel. And we have a dome with the same spec. Again, the IK10 resistant dome, clean view on the dome, so you'll be able to go out and use these in most challenging situations. We've made an update to our IP finder that I know a lot of you guys will like. If you guys have used it, you can assign multiple IPs to multiple cameras. Okay, so if you had 20 cameras at a site and they were all, of course, digital watchdog, you'll be able to assign IPs to all of them. You set your range from whatever you're putting in there, 192.168.1.10 to 100. You can do your 90 cameras and we'll assign the IPs to them. And that feature's been in there actually since at least 4.40. We also allow you to do firmware updates to multiple cameras, so you could have firmware. Now, of course, it has to be the same model. So you take the same model cameras. If you got 10 of the same model cameras, 20 of the same model cameras, make sure you have the correct firmware update file, and this software will go out and push the firmware updates, saving you guys time. As I said before, time is money. But we've also added new functionality, which is bulk password assignment. Okay, we all know that security for IP systems is going to be forced to be improved. Okay, and so a lot of manufacturers have put in, default usernames and passwords, and pretty much there's been rulings and laws and guidances saying no more default usernames and passwords in IP devices, even if they're not connected to the internet. And so the problem would be is if you went out and had 10 cameras, you'd go out and you'd have to go into each camera and change the password on it. This one allows you to go in and force a new password, a strong password, into every DW camera on the system. Now, there will be a few that are out in distribution that have been around a little while that don't have the latest firmware on it, but 99% of our cameras, as long as they have the latest firmware on it, this will work on, okay? And any new cameras we release, of course, it'll function fine on. And I tested on a number of cameras. It seems to work very well with it. You just choose your cameras. They'll appear in a list here, and then you give them their new password. We're going to force you to do a strong password, at least 8 characters. You can put a hint in there, like, my birthday, or something in there that you're going to use for your strong password. Hopefully nothing to make it too weak or easily guessed. And then it'll update the passwords and all that. If it's some reason it can't do it, there was a network disconnection or something like that, you actually get a note that'll appear in here, okay? And it'll say, like, couldn't connect or couldn't change the password, whatever, and then you can go in and, force it through again. So, and then when you're all done doing it, if you put that username and password in here, it'll then show you the thumbnails if you need to make any other changes or tweaks to it, whether it's IPs or DNS settings or whatever. You can go in there and do that after you make the initial change. So let's talk a little bit about one of the reasons why you guys logged in, and that's Digital Watchdog Spectrum 4.0. We'll probably be releasing it by the middle of October, okay? But I wanted to give you guys sort of a feel of what's going on at the back end of it, how the interface is going to change a little bit. All this stuff will be, first off, we'll talk about what's new, differences of the interface, the way the interface will change, and then security improvements. Okay, so first thing you're going to notice is the thing that now supports H.265 for cameras that manage H.265 via ONVIF, meaning ONVIF recognizes that there's 2 codecs in the cameras. A lot of camera manufacturers don't do this. Okay, they'll say, like, their mainstream is whatever the default is. Default might be H.264. It supports H.265, and you got to change it to H.265. It's not a big deal. It's not a huge amount of labor, but you can go in and do it. This way, the Spectrum will go in and say, if the camera supports H.265 by codec, it'll try to use that codec. The other feature that I know you guys wanted to see was cloud merge. Okay, so we have the ability to merge systems, but before you have to merge the systems, you have to be at the physical system, and the units have to be in the same site, and you merge them together, okay? Or they'd be at different sites, but you still have to merge them together. You can only merge them to one to the cloud, okay? Now you can go in and merge them in the cloud. So you could have two systems. So a system can be one server or 20 servers, okay? And then you have another system that might be one server or 20 servers. And you can now, as long as you, okay, not saying you, but the user, let's just say it's Paul K at digital-watchdog.com, is the owner on both of them. Email address that was put in and connected to the cloud is the same on all of them. You can now merge those systems together in the cloud. It is the same as merging them locally, but it makes it easier to set up. So if you have a customer doing multi-sites and later they want to put them together in systems geographically, they can now go out, a generic email as the login to the cloud. So I use one if I log a system in the cloud called DW Cloud 1, dwcc.tv. And so I sit there and I make the systems and I log them in to that, each one separately. Now I'll have the ability to say, okay, these 5 systems are in the Southeast region. We're going to merge those together. These 10 are in the Northeast regions. We're going to merge those together. So now we have cloud merge. It'll make it easier and faster to do cloud merge, especially if you're changing stuff around. So system changes, GUI changes. Okay, so first off, we have a thing as far as security goes, because they only allow secure connections. So that means that you're going to have an HTTPS connection, and all what would be plain text like the username and password or whatever are now hashed. Okay, they are encrypted. Then you could say encrypt video traffic, and then that will encrypt the video traffic between client and server. Another thing that I think came from the field here, maybe again one of you guys on the call here, is limit session duration. You get someone logs in and they're sitting there and they leave their PC on and their machine's logged in for 3 days, eating up bandwidth, hard drive space, maybe creating a problem because other people are having trouble logging in because he's got 50 cameras up on his screen. So you can now limit session duration, so you can lower it to minutes, hours, whatever. So as soon as there's no interaction in the session, after let's just say it's an hour, it'll disconnect it. Another functionality is display watermark and with username over video. So if you do any export from the system, if you have that checked, check that as admin, someone does an export, their username will be planted in the video. And you can plant it so it's in one spot, like in the middle, or 4 spots, or a lot of spots. So this way we know who exported it and maybe dumped it onto YouTube or something like that. The other thing in here, which I talk about in all my certification class, is the create backup. I want to stress to you guys, you're done with an install, plug a little USB stick in the machine, create a backup. Or you're all done with the install, you forgot it at the site, you log in remotely to the site, create a backup. Very important, that backs up all your settings, layouts you created, the users you created, backs up the licenses, all this stuff. So please do yourself a favor, do a backup of every install you do, whether it's one NVR or multiple NVR in a system, do the backup of it. Save you aggravation just in case something happens. Camera recording page. Now you guys have seen, and you guys I think have seen this in 3.2, but you can now go and tweak the high-res stream for better bandwidth and storage control. So if you want, you can take that high-res stream and maybe medium quality is good, but I want to just have a little better picture, so you crank it up so it's not quite high or best, but you can give it a little better picture quality, or you can say medium looks good, I want to get a little more storage, so I can knock it down to, let's say, 2 megabits versus 2.5 megabits from the camera, and thus saving on storage space. So you can just tweak settings. You can then, copy the schedule to your simplified it. We've got fixed archive length, motion record for your events down below. So they've cleaned it up a little bit, made it a little easier to navigate. So notification page. So this is the biggest change. So normally, again, if you guys are familiar with Spectrum, you had this notification page on the right-hand side. And what would happen is you get events would pop up, but most of it would be like, in case of me logging into something, right, a server conflict, there was another server on the same network that I wasn't merged to. Or you didn't set an email address in here. And it would be like events and information, but maybe not what you wanted to see. So now we can force analytic events in there, motion detection. If there's an input trigger, you want that stuff on here. Generic events, so some third-party device, third-party access control is sending events into Spectrum. You can have those. You can look at camera events, okay, meaning issues like disconnected for some reason or whatever, and any server events. So you have that pane. Then you can see over here, you can see all your bookmarks. So if you have bookmarks being created manually or automatically, you can have them listed there by camera, and you just click the little bookmark up here, okay? Or you can just do straight motion. So you click here and highlight an area for motion. All the motion in that area will appear in this pane. and you can just scroll down, look for the event you want, or someone walking by the car, or a car backing out, whatever, and then just play back that event. Motion pane is now super useful. Okay, sorry, motion pane. The event pane, notification pane is super useful. Adding devices. So they've streamlined the adding the device. They've made it easier. They've made it a little more intuitive, and also it finds more devices. It seems to work better. I have a few oddball cameras from different manufacturers that I test on it, and in the past had trouble reading them, or it read them and it wouldn't log into them. So they've made some improvements, great improvements to this tool. And you can go by known address, which means you know what the IP address is, or in this case, this is the subnet scan. You just tell it, I'm going to scan the whole subnet, find the cameras. Now, if you don't have a username and password, you won't be able to log in, but if you know the username and password on the camera, you'll be able to, of course, log into them. So another feature, which you guys have seen in 3.2, but they've made some great strides in it, and that's virtual camera. So virtual camera can be any sort of video recording device. It can be along with being a body camera or wearable camera the police would use, dash camera, or drones. It could be a GoPro. It could be someone's using a GoPro for some surveillance stuff. All the video from this. So think about a municipality. Think about a large business where they have their security doing, wearing body cameras. Maybe the police are using drones for surveillance. Now they can now take all their video and aggregate it into one spot. So they want to do a search of what happened on, Saturday night at 9 p.m., in this general area. They can bring up all the cameras and they can say, maybe they had a car speeding down the road, there's an accident. Maybe some dash cam somewhere else, or another, police car wasn't occupied, but the dash cam saw the car go by. Get a clear view of the car. So you can now take all your video and aggregate it together in one spot. The only thing the video has to do is the video has to have the date timestamp actually buried in it as I would call it loosely XML data. So if it's an old dash cam, I tried to use an old dash cam I got from my wife 6 years ago. Didn't work. Got her a new dash cam, worked just fine. So it's a really an interesting setup. You can also do motion detection on it, so actually it'll do motion detection. So if you have what is one of those things, a critter cam, a game camera, you can go out, turn it on, turn on the motion detection and then import the video in it and see what's going on with that inside of Spectrum. You can also do fisheye cameras, and also you can set the archive length, the video to expire and delete after a while. Okay, so you can say, I'm going to hold this video for 365 days, whatever long as I can have it. Now, the only thing this costs you is this does not cost you a camera license. It's only cost you the storage space, and you can take the storage and store it on any server in your system. So you could create a server, a box, if you will, with Spectrum running on it. And that can be your storage for your virtual cameras, and then you have your regular storage for all your cameras on your site. But all that video will be playbackable and archived together. And as long as the date and timestamp right, everything will be right, either in the virtual cameras and through your standard surveillance cameras. Answer your questions. And thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. And we'll end